When you look at how this season ended, it's easy to let that final image stick in your head and define everything. But if you zoom out for just a second and really think about where this team is, there's a very real reason to believe the 49ers can win a Super Bowl next year. I'm not talking about blind optimism or pretending the flaws don't exist. I'm talking about reality. This roster, when healthy, is still one of the most talented groups in the NFL. And the league itself has never felt more wide open than it does right now. There isn't some unstoppable dynasty standing in the way. Every contender has cracks, and the 49ers are right there in that top tier when things are even remotely normal. Think about what this team managed to do despite everything that went wrong. Injuries piled up at an almost unbelievable rate, yet they still won double-digit games, still found their way into the playoffs, and still won a playoff game. They were doing it with backups, patched-together units, and an offense that was far from operating at full strength. That alone should tell you how high the baseline is for this roster. If even a few things break their way next season, the ceiling rises dramatically. This is where I want to hear from you, because it really matters how you see this team right now. Do you still believe the 49ers can win a Super Bowl next year? Yes or no? Drop that in the comments, because the fan base feels split, and I'm curious where you land. And if you're someone who still believes this window is open, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on. We're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you helps keep this channel growing and focused on daily Niners coverage. Another thing that gets overlooked is context. This was not a lost season. Winning 12 games, earning a playoff win, and staying competitive despite massive adversity is not failure. It's proof of concept. It shows that the foundation works. The coaching, the quarterback, and the core talent are good enough to compete with anyone when they're not completely undermined by circumstances outside normal control. Now, none of this means the offseason can be passive. Far from it. The reason this team can win a Super Bowl next year is directly tied to whether they're willing to confront the biggest issue holding them back. That issue isn't scheme, and it's not a lack of stars. It's something deeper, something structural, and if it doesn't get fixed, none of the talent will matter. That's exactly what we need to talk about next. If you want to talk honestly about why the 49ers haven't finished the job, everything leads back to health. Not in a vague, unlucky way, but in a way that points directly at infrastructure, preparation, and decision-making. Injuries have been a problem for this organization for years now, and at some point, you have to stop calling it bad luck. When the same team keeps dealing with the same issue across different seasons, different players, and different circumstances, that's a pattern, and patterns demand answers. This isn't just about guys getting hurt during games. It's about how players are trained, how they recover, how practices are structured, and how the entire operation manages wear and tear over a long season. From strength and conditioning to recovery protocols to workload management, something clearly isn't working well enough. You can't expect to compete for championships year after year when key players are constantly missing time or playing at less than full strength. That's not sustainable, and it directly caps your ceiling. What makes this even more frustrating is that if the 49ers had been even moderately healthier this season, they would have had a real shot. The league was wide open. There wasn't some dominant team you had to be perfect to beat. Opportunities were there, and injuries closed that door. That's why fixing this isn't optional. It's the single biggest swing factor between being a good playoff team and being a Super Bowl champion. And this is where ownership and leadership have to be willing to spend money and make uncomfortable changes. That might mean reevaluating the strength and conditioning staff. It might mean changing how practices are run. It might even mean taking a serious look at facilities and environment if that's contributing to the problem. Whatever the answer is, doing nothing can't be acceptable. Every offseason move, every draft pick, every free agent signing loses value if your best players aren't available when it matters most. I want to know how you see this, because it's a big dividing line among fans. Do you think the injury problems are mostly bad luck, or do you think they're a failure at the organizational level? Let me know in the comments, and if you agree that health has to be the top priority, make sure you like the video. It helps more than you might realize, and it pushes us closer to that 1,000 subscriber goal. The frustrating part is that if this one issue gets addressed correctly, everything else becomes easier. Talent matters more. Coaching decisions matter more. Roster upgrades actually pay off. And that brings us to the next area where the margin for error completely disappeared this season. Because even when players were on the field, the offense was fighting uphill all night long. Once you move past health, The next hard truth is that the offense needs a serious reality check, and it starts up front. The offensive line has been exposed too many times against top competition to pretend this is a small issue. Year after year, in the biggest moments, against the best defenses, the same problems show up. Pressure up the middle, missed assignments, a lack of physical dominance when it matters most. You simply cannot win a Super Bowl with an average offensive line, especially in January when everything tightens and defenses get faster. That reality puts the quarterback in an impossible position, and this is where the Brock Purdy conversation needs to be framed correctly. Purdy made high-level plays despite constant pressure and limited margin for error. He wasn't protected, he didn't have consistent time, and the offense didn't give him answers when things broke down. That's not a quarterback problem. That's a team problem. If anything, this season should increase confidence in him, not reduce it. Then you look at the weapons around him, and it gets even more concerning. The wide receiver room doesn't scare defenses vertically. There's no consistent threat that forces safeties to back up and open space underneath. That's why coverage collapses so quickly. That's why everything feels congested. When your receivers aren't winning downfield, it makes life harder on everyone, including the run game and the quarterback. Free agency and roster turnover only make that issue more urgent, not less. And that's where this offseason becomes pivotal. You can't just run it back and hope things magically improve. Whether it's through the draft, free agency, or creative roster moves, the offense needs more protection and more explosiveness. Those two things change everything. They extend drives. They reduce mistakes. They allow the scheme to actually breathe instead of feeling like it's constantly operating under stress. I'm curious where you stand on this, because fans debate it nonstop. If you could only fix one thing this offseason, would you choose the offensive line or the wide receiver room? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you believe Brock Purdy is the franchise quarterback, make sure you're subscribed. We're building this channel toward 1,000 subscribers, and your support keeps these conversations going every single day. The interesting part is that despite all these offensive questions, there's an argument to be made that the defense might actually be in better shape moving forward. And that's where the conversation shifts next. When you flip over to the defensive side of the ball, what's interesting is that there are actually fewer long-term concerns than you might expect. That doesn't mean everything is perfect, but it does mean the path to improvement is clearer. Getting key players back healthy alone would change the entire complexion of this unit. Impact defenders returning immediately raise the floor, and that's something you can't overlook when projecting next season. There were also real positives from younger players who were forced into bigger roles than expected. Those reps matter. Development matters. Seeing flashes from rookies and young contributors gives the coaching staff a foundation to build on instead of starting from scratch. That's a big deal, especially when you consider how quickly defenses can rebound with just a few smart additions. That said, there are still areas that need attention. Linebacker depth alongside the core playmakers is a concern, and the safety position was inconsistent throughout the season. Coverage breakdowns, missed angles, and lack of reliability on the back end made life harder than it needed to be. These aren't impossible problems to fix, but they do require honesty and urgency. A veteran presence in the secondary could stabilize things quickly, and depth at linebacker would prevent the defense from collapsing when injuries hit. Coaching also plays a role here. Continuity can be valuable, but so can fresh ideas if changes happen. The key is making sure the scheme fits the personnel and puts players in positions to succeed. When that alignment exists, this defense has already shown it can be one of the better units in the league. Let me ask you this, because it helps frame the entire defensive conversation. What worries you more heading into next season, the safety position or linebacker depth? Leave your answer down below, and if you're enjoying this breakdown, hit the like button. It supports the channel and helps us reach that 1,000 subscriber milestone. All of this leads to the bigger picture. When you combine offensive stability, offensive upgrades, and a healthier roster, the opportunity next season becomes very real. And the final piece of that puzzle is how everything lines up moving forward. When you pull everything together, this is why next season sets up as such a massive opportunity for the 49ers. The foundation is already in place. You have a proven quarterback, elite core players on both sides of the ball, and a team that has shown it can win even when things go wrong. Add in a schedule that should be more favorable, and suddenly the path doesn't look nearly as daunting as it might feel right now. The key is that this offseason has to be intentional. Staying healthy has to become a priority, not just a talking point. The offensive line and skill positions need real upgrades, not hope-based solutions. The defense needs stability and a couple of smart additions to clean up problem areas. None of that requires a full rebuild. It requires focus, investment, and a willingness to be honest about what didn't work. It's also important not to let the final loss erase everything that came before it. This was a fun season, a successful season. Winning 12 games and a playoff game while navigating constant adversity matters, even if it ended in a frustrating way. More importantly, it showed that the window is still open. The difference between where this team is now and a Super Bowl isn't massive. It's specific. I want to know where your confidence level is as we look ahead. On a scale from 1 to 10, how confident are you that the 49ers can make a Super Bowl run next season? Drop that number in the comments. And if you believe this team is closer than people think, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. We're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers. Your support keeps this channel growing and delivering daily for Niners coverage. Before you go, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed the breakdown. It helps the channel more than you might realize. And it tells me you want more content like this. This offseason is going to be critical, and every move will matter. If the 49ers get this right, next season won't be about potential anymore. It'll be about finishing the job.